This is Dr. Bev Knox, and you are listening to my psychology tutorial series, Learn Psychology While You Sleep. Sexual motivation. Sex is a part of life. For all but the tiny fraction of us considered asexual, dating and mating become a high priority from puberty on. Physiological and psychological influences affect our sexual feelings and behaviors. Sex is not like hunger because it is not an actual need, yet it motivates. Sexual motivation is nature's clever way of making people procreate, thus enabling our species' survival. When two people feel attraction, they hardly stop to think of themselves as guided by their ancestral genes. As the pleasure we take in eating is nature's method of getting our body's nourishment, so does desires and pleasures of sex are our genes' way of preserving and spreading themselves. Life is sexually transmitted. The sexual response cycle. What is the human sexual response cycle, and how do sexual dysfunctions differ? In the 1960s, gynecologist William Masters and his collaborator Virginia Johnson made headlines by recording the physiological responses of volunteers who came to their lab to masturbate and have intercourse. With the help of 382 females and 312 male volunteers, a somewhat atypical sample consisted only of people able and willing to display arousal and orgasm while scientists observed. Masters and Johnson reported observing more than 10,000 sexual cycles. Their description of the sexual response cycle identified 4 stages. First, excitement. The genital area become engorged with blood, causing a woman's clitoris and a man's penis to swell. A woman's vagina expands and secretes lubrication. Her breast and nipples may enlarge. Stage 2 is the plateau. Excitement peaks as breathing, pulse, and blood pressure rates continue to increase. A man's penis becomes fully engorged, and an average length of 5.6 inches among 1661 men who measured themselves for condom fitting. Some fluid frequently containing enough live sperm to enable conception. A woman's vagina secretion continues to increase and her clitoris reacts. Orgasm feels imminent. Stage 3. Orgasm. Muscle contractions appear all over the body and are accompanied by other increasing pulse and body pressure rates. A woman's arousal and orgasm facilitate conception. They help propel semen from the penis, position the uterus to receive sperm, and draw the sperm further inward, increasing retention of deposited sperm. The pleasurable feeling of sexual release apparently is much the same for both sexes. One panel of experts could not reliably distinguish between descriptions of orgasm written by men and those written by women. Stage 4 is resolution. The body gradually returns to its unaroused state as the genital blood vessels release their accumulated blood. This happens relatively quickly if orgasm has occurred, relatively slowly otherwise. Men then enter a fractionary period that lasts from a few minutes to a day or more, during which they are incapable of another orgasm. A woman's much shorter fractionary period may enable her, if re-stimulated during or soon after resolution, to have more orgasms. Masters and Johnson sought not only to describe the human sexual response cycle, but also to understand and treat the inability to complete it. Sexual dysfunctions are problems that consistently impair sexual arousal or functioning. Some involve sexual motivation, especially lack of sexual energy and arousal. For men, others include erectile dysfunction, inability to have or maintain an erection, and premature ejaculation. For women, the problem may be pain or female orgasmic disorder, which is distress or infrequent or never experiencing orgasm. In separate surveys of some 3,000 Boston women and 32,000 other American women, about 4 in 10 reported a sexual problem, such as orgasmic disorder, but only about 1 in 8 reported that this caused personal distress. Most women who have experienced sexual distress have related it to their emotional relationship with their partner during sex. Therapy can help men and women with sexual dysfunctions. In behaviorally oriented therapy, for example, men learn ways to control their urge to ejaculate, and women are trained to bring themselves to orgasm. Starting with introduction of the vagina in 1998, erectile disorders has been routinely treated by taking a pill. Equally effective drug treatments for female sexual interest arousal disorder are not yet available. Sexual dysfunction involves problems with arousal or sexually transmitted infections. How can sexually transmitted infections be prevented? Worldwide, more than 1 million people acquire a sexually transmitted infection, also known as STIs, also called STD for sexually transmitted disease. Imagine this scenario. Over the course of a year, Pat has sex with 9 people, each of whom over the same period has sex with 9 other people, who in turn have sex with 9 others. How many phantom sex partners will Pat have? The actual number is 511, is more than 5 times the estimated given by an average student. Condoms offer only limited protection against certain skin-to-skin STIs, such as herpes, but they do not reduce other risks. The effects were clear when Thailand promoted 100% condom use by commercial sex workers. Over a 4-year period, as condom use soared from 14 to 94%, the annual number of bacterial STIs plummeted from 400,000 to 27,000. Across the available studies, condoms also have been 80% effective in preventing transmissions of HIV. Although AIDS can be transmitted by other means, such as needle sharing during sex use, its sexual transmission is most common. Because the virus is passed from man to woman much more often, a man's semen can carry more than the virus. The HIV-infected semen can also linger for days in a woman's vagina and cervix, increasing the time exposed. Most Americans with AIDS have been in midlife or younger, ages 25 to 44. Given AIDS' long incubation period, this means that many of these young people were infected as teens. In 2012, the death of 1.6 million people with AIDS worldwide left behind countless grief-stricken partners and millions of orphaned children. Sub-Saharan Africa is home to 2/3 of those infected with HIV. Many people assume that oral sex falls in the category of safe sex, but recent studies show a significant link between oral sex and transmission of STIs. Sex and human values. Is scientific research on sexual motivation value-free? Recognizing that values are both personal and cultural, most sex researchers and educators strive to keep their writings value-free. But the very words we are using to describe behavior can reflect our personal values. Whether we label certain sexual behaviors as perversions or as an alternate sexual lifestyle depends on our attitude towards the behaviors itself. Labels describe, but they also evaluate. Scientific research on sexual motivation does not aim to define the personal meaning of sex in their own lives. One recent study asked 2,035 married people when they started having sex while controlling for education, religious engagement, and relationship length. Those whose relationship first developed to a deep commitment, such as marriage, not only reported greater relationship satisfaction and stability, but also reported better sex. For both men and women, but especially for women, orgasm occurs more often when sex happens in a committed relationship rather than a sexual hookup. Sex is a socially significant act. Men and women can achieve orgasm alone, yet most people find greater satisfaction and experience a greater surge in the proclamation hormone associated with sexual satisfaction. Thanks to their overlapping brain reward areas, sexual desire and love feed each other. Sex at its human best is life uniting and love renewing.